getting into the episode. Today I'm talking about everything you need to know to do with meditation. If you haven't followed my journey as much, my background is essentially, I'm a meditation teacher. I've been meditating for 6.5 years, probably an average of an hour and a half each day. Definitely minimum 2 meditations a day, probably average 2.5 a day over the 6.5 years. And it is the tool that has changed my life more than anything else. It's the tool that I recommend more than anything else, above the tools that I've created myself. It's a thing that I have the greatest reverence and appreciation for because of how it's influenced the person that I've become, and also the way that I interact with life has been so different since learning to meditate. And it's been a gradual opening of the heart over that whole stretch of being a meditator. So in this episode, I'm going to go through the ins and outs of what types of meditations exist, the type that I suggest, how that functions, the history of that type, and the benefits. I'm going to go through all of it, essentially. So if you're someone that's been curious about meditation, or you're already a meditator and you want to understand it deeper, this is going to be a pretty thorough, vast teaching around meditation. Whether you are practicing it already or you're not, you're going to get a lot from this if you stay tuned, and it will support you to be motivated and inspired to practice more, or potentially to pick up the practice to begin with. So let's get into this. Now, there are lots of different types of meditations. And to start out this episode, I just want to clarify there's a big difference between mindfulness and meditation as a practice. Mindfulness is something like surfing. You can be mindful and have awareness and presence with any activity that you're doing. And that's mindfulness. It's when you have presence connected to any activity. And I put anything other than more formal versions of meditation into the category of mindfulness. So I wouldn't say that going for a walk is meditation. I wouldn't say that surfing is meditation, or gardening is meditation, or music is meditation. I'd say they are all opportunities for mindfulness. And then we have the ability to deepen the way that we practice meditation using key preparatory tools. Things like chanting can support a meditation practice. Yoga was created as a precursor to meditation. Breathwork was also created as a precursor to meditation. Satsangs, which are spiritual discourses, where you have a guru that gives a lecture and answers questions about spiritual wisdom, that's also a precursor to meditation to support the deepening of the practice. So there are lots of different ways. Chanting, singing, they all support the deepening of a meditation practice. Now that we've clarified that, we have mindfulness and we have meditation. Meditation is when you are sitting down and you are engaged in a technique to quiet the mind or impact the mind in some specific way. Now, there are unlimited ways that you can practice mindfulness. There are also lots of ways that you can practice meditation. So I'm going to put mindfulness to the side now and just clarify that if you ever use the language of my form of meditation is insert mindfulness practice, that's not a form of meditation in the way that I clarify it. Because mindfulness is potent, but it's not meditation. I heard Esther Hicks talking about this, or Abraham Hicks talking about it. She recommends, or her guide recommends, that everyone should meditate who wants to live a more fulfilled life and have greater manifestation potential and whatnot. And she very strictly clarified, or Abraham very quickly clarified, I'm talking about a meditation practice. I'm not talking about going for a walk or things that are relaxing for you, even though they're also beautiful and powerful. Meditation is potent. And the reason that a lot of people say, my meditation is surfing, my meditation is laying on the beach, is because they usually haven't found a resonance with meditation yet. That's my experience. I've got lots of people in my life that I know that are really beautiful, powerful people, and they haven't formed a relationship with meditation yet. So to be included, they say, my form of meditation is, and then their mindfulness attempts. And what I'm going to talk about in here is I'm going to explain why a meditation practice in its more pure form is valuable and important on top of and alongside mindfulness practices. So, yes, now that we've clarified that, there are lots of different types of meditation practices. There are, and I had these categorized and defined by Johnny Pollard, who taught me to be a meditation teacher. He is the founder of One Giant Mind, which is a powerful app that teaches a particular type of meditation. And it's had either hundreds of thousands or millions of users or uses of the app. And he is a really powerful leader, a really embodied leader that's been doing this for quite some time now. And so Johnny created this idea of the different categories or types of meditation. And I'm going to use some kind of modified version of that. So I'm going to start with the most gross or most tangible form, and then I'm going to go to the most subtle and the most intangible form. So the most material, essentially the least deep form of meditation, and then I'm going to go all the way to the deepest form. So the least deep is mindfulness, and that's not a form of meditation, but we can just say mindfulness is still beautiful and powerful, but that would be just outside the most tangible forms of meditation. But the most tangible form is a connecting technique. And they are a big category of different types of meditations that involve connecting with your body. So, for example, a chakra meditation, when you are being guided to be with different parts of your body. A yoga nidra is also going through, and that's like a, what do they call them? A body, I can't remember the name for it, but yoga nidra is essentially where you go and you just touch the different body parts in your mind's eye and just bring awareness to the different areas. That's a connecting technique, the most tangible form. Very powerful, but not as deep. And I still do those. I still find a lot of value in that. But it's not about going which ones, some are good, some are bad. It's just about understanding the spectrum so that you can get a distinction of what's available. So we have connecting techniques, which are, you could even put very gentle breathing, being aware of your, getting you to connect your breath and shift your breath in different ways. That could fall under a connecting technique. Any guided meditations have a good chance of falling into the category of being a connection technique. If it's getting you to go in and become aware of your heart, if it's a loving kindness meditation, if you're sending out gratitude to people, these are all connecting techniques. They're all either connecting to the body, connecting to the mind, connecting to other people energetically. And that's that form. And as I go through and explain these next ones, it'll help understand why this connecting technique sits in its own category. A little bit more involvement when doing that technique. So I also want to make it clear that This is not a school test here. The purpose of me sharing these just subjective view on the categories of meditation is just to get you to have a broader understanding of what's available and some way to kind of identify where a certain meditation might land within these categories. So it's not the right set of categories. There's actually lots of overlapping between different types of meditations because there's so many different types. So anyway, connecting techniques is the first one. The next one I would say are focusing techniques. And that's all about using the mind to concentrate. It's trying to keep your attention somewhere. It's to get clarity on where you want to go. And it's to try to focus the mind. And so there is a lot of Taoist and Buddhist meditation types that are about focusing. And it's almost like disciplining the mind. And it's attempting to gain some degree of control over the mind. And that is a category of meditation. I probably practice that the least. Examples within that category of meditation. There are also intuitive or visioning meditations. And that is when you're being guided to connect into a really quiet space so that you can become clear and vision where you want to go. So visualizations, any visioning, William Whitecloud's Land of Plenty would go in that. A lot of Joe Dispenza's, when he gets people to connect into a state of being first, a state of quiet, and silence the mind, go to the place of nowhere, no body, etc., no time. Those all fall under more intuitive and visioning meditations. And that's that category. And then we have the two most subtle forms of meditation. Okay. The witnessing category or observation category of meditation is vipassana, where it's just about observing what's present. It's not about placing your energy on it or changing or calming the mind like connection techniques. It's just witnessing. It's just observing. Just observing. If you're very gently observing your thoughts or observing your breath or observing a particular sense that you have, if you're observing the air around your body or your more subtle bodies, these are all witnessing techniques. And they allow for quite a experience of presence to be obtained, and they are pretty deep in their nature. And so just for a moment, to attempt to create some kind of visual view of all of these categories, I would just see them all listed out, all these different categories listed out, the one as a list from top to bottom. So a vertical list right at the top is mindfulness. It's outside the meditation categories. Then we go into the meditation categories, and the word that is written under that would be connecting techniques. The word that would be written under that would be focusing techniques. The word that would be under that is visioning techniques. The word that would be under that is witnessing techniques. Okay? And all of those words, all of those are, if this is a y-axis of a graph, at the very top of the graph is the most tangible. And then as we go down, we go to the most intangible, or the most subtle. So you have witnessing techniques are the most subtle of all the ones that I've mentioned so far, but there's also one category that's even more subtle, even more deep, so to speak. And so right at the top of this graph, this visual I'm giving you of right at the top, mindfulness, it's outside meditations, but it's definitely the most tangible. You're in life, you're walking around, engaging in life, and you're bringing some presence to it. Then you're doing connecting techniques, which can be about moving and bringing your attention to different aspects of you and shaping the way that they're happening. You might be changing your breath. You might be connecting in on your heart. There's more movement. It's more tangible, less still, less subtle, less deep. And then you have focusing techniques. And when we focus, we're actually executing an aspect of control, which keeps our ego awake and alive. So it's still quite tangible, and that becomes a block to the deepening, that control. Then visioning can be quite a journey, quite powerful, but to get into vision and intuition, I'd say intuitive visioning. Intuitive visioning is when you connect into a very deep place so that you can be taken on a journey to get clarity on something in particular or a vision of some kind. So any intuitive things require going to a depth to be able to perceive the information that's coming up from the depth. And if you see, we could even see this graph as an ocean, and you're just seeing right at the top, the mindfulness is just above the waves. It's the waves, it's the play, it's the crash, it's the surface. And then we start to go deeper. Now we're under the surface of the ocean and we're going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And we get quite towards the bottom of the ocean as we get all the way down to a witnessing technique, which is very subtle and it's observing, and it's quite a still space. So all techniques like Vipassana, observing the breath, there are lots of different techniques that are just to do with silent observation. Okay. So how many categories do we have there? Connecting, focusing, oh, I'm missing one, am I? Intuitive visioning, focusing. Yeah, no, I'm not. Intuitive visioning, witnessing. So that's 4 so far. And we have mindfulness that I'm just putting outside meditation categories, but keeping it on the graph. Okay. So there's 5 there, 1 above the waves. And then we have 4 below: connecting, focusing, intuitive visioning, and then witnessing. And there's 1 more category. And this is the category that I recommend that you start practicing, because it has a domino effect from the deepest of deep. And just like you knock that domino, you experience that level of depth, and it just has a cascading effect. You become better at witnessing. You become better at intuition and intuitive visioning. You naturally become better at focusing, and you become better at connecting. And then you become more mindful. And that deepest category is known as either a being technique, being, or a transcendence technique. And so right at that depth, when you go to you're right on the ocean floor, that ocean floor, the sand, where the sand starts, that is witnessing. It's very close to the bottom layer until you go out of the ocean. You're not even in the ocean anymore. You're in oneness. And that layer, that witnessing is close to the surface of the ocean and kind of touching the surface. But then to go under the surface, out of this reality and into oneness, that is a transcendence. You've transcended deeper into the nature of what you are, the source of all creation. Joe Dispenza calls this the quantum realm. William Whitecloud calls it the superconscious. Muji calls it isness. A lot of people in spirituality call it oneness. Some people call it the divine, or there's lots of different names for it. But that place can be entered through a meditation practice. If you have a transcendence practice, that is the purest form, because it's got the least interference. Even if you're witnessing, you're still kind of exerting some element of control over that. What am I observing? Keep coming back to the observation. There's still some interference there, which can only take us so deep. It takes us pretty deep. Intuitive perception, intuitive visioning, that category also goes quite deep to be able to perceive and become aware of what is coming from the unmanifest, into the manifest in the most subtle way through intuitive impulses. I want to tap into that. So you have to get deep to allow intuitive visioning and intuition to come up. So that's also pretty deep. And then it becomes more and more gross, more and more tangible, more and more manifest in form as you rise up through these categories. Okay? Whereas a being technique, as far as I'm aware, there would be more than this, but I'm going to say there are two core being techniques or transcendence techniques, meditation techniques. And they are Vedic meditation and transcendental meditation. The rise of these techniques from the Eastern world to the Western world came thanks to a man called Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Now, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, I'm going to transition out of understanding those categories with a pre-frame of, I recommend practicing a being technique or a transcendence technique because it allows you to slip through the cracks of the thoughts in your mind and just go straight into being, straight into oneness, into isness, into the divine, into the quantum, into the superconscious, where you have the experience of connecting with your true nature, and as a consequence, you become more like that. But I am going to go into the benefits of this form of meditation. But first, I'm just going to give a brief history on how it came to be, so we can understand the origin of most meditation in the Western world and where it came from. So we have Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who had a guru called Gurudev. Now, Gurudev taught Maharishi to meditate. He taught Maharishi about the Vedas, which is a series of wisdom, or also known as Vedanta, which means the truth. And this is essentially the source of all meditation, all deep philosophy around the world, sourced from ancient India. Yogic wisdom, Vedic wisdom, the Vedic tradition, Vedanta, the Vedas. The Bhagavad Gita is a well-known book that's kind of like the Bible almost for people that are into this body of wisdom. It's not a religion, it's a tradition or a lineage. However, from that lineage birthed Hinduism. From that lineage birthed Ayurvedic food. From that lineage birthed yoga. And then the yoga form of the form of yoga that's the study of the wisdom. And so Gandhi, for example, the only book that he took to prison was the Bhagavad Gita, which was studying this wisdom. And out of this body of wisdom comes practices like kirtan, devotional chanting, comes practices like cosmic body technique, pranayama breathing, Vedic meditation, and there's lots of other types of meditation as well. But the deepest and subtlest and the most encouraged way to transcend from this lineage is Vedic meditation. There are other ways that you can connect and go deep as well, but the purest, easiest, most potent form is Vedic meditation or transcendental meditation. Now, going back to Gurudev, who was a inheritor of the wisdom from his predecessors, going all the way back 5,000 plus years, where this wisdom has been, and these techniques like Vedic meditation and a bunch of mantras and sutras and mudras and different bodies of work, which is so wildly impressive. It goes beyond explanation. And because I've been studying this work for 6.5 years now, practicing it for 6.5 years, I've got a fair bit of wisdom around it, but I'm in the process of deepening and studying a lot at the moment. So I'll continue to bring out more wisdom from this tradition. as I study and learn more, and I feel like I'm really across it. I don't tend to teach things unless I feel really rooted and grounded in the embodiment of it. Anywho, it is an old tradition. It is the oldest body of wisdom known in modern civilization and documented. So this has been around for a long time. And there's so much potency. It's very primordial in the sense that if you've ever seen those experiments that have been done where a speaker puts the sound waves of different music or any sound into some kind of dish of water or water on the surface of the speaker, and then it forms shapes. So based on playing different sounds, chants, music, the experiment sees, is there going to be a shape that's formed from this music? Now, most music doesn't form a shape. It's just the water is all disturbed and it's not forming any coherent shape. Whereas certain types of classical music form different shapes because they were formed through straight intuition and created through so much purity of intuition that there is some inherent creative structure that is demonstrated or shown through the water. The water almost imprints the shapes, right? And so I use the word primordial, which means from the beginning of time, like the origin. And the really interesting thing is the chanting, which was how the wisdom was first cognized, which means first created or captured. The wisdom was taken from the unmanifest and then captured in a way and structured. And a man called Vyasa did that. And Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata, which is the longest epic novel of all, religious novel of all time. I ordered it the other day because I haven't actually read it. And the package came and it was almost 4 kilos. And I was like, that can't be the books. There's 2 volumes. And then I opened it and there's these books that are so massive. So it is ridiculously nuanced. Anyway, Vyasa and the other key cognizers through this tradition originally grabbed the wisdom in the form of singing and chanting. Sounds. So sound was how it was initially, not formulated sounds into an explanation, but just sounds. And one of the most primordial forms of this chanting that is believed to contain the wisdom of this tradition is called Rig Veda. And you can just put it into Spotify and you'll get some Rig Veda to listen to. It's very deep sounding, primitive, almost sounds like growling, but in mantra. And when experiments have been done, and you can just YouTube this, when experiments have been done playing Rig Veda and Vedic chanting to the music, it forms primordial organisms, early organisms that were some of the first to be created on Earth, certain types of shellfish and different animals that were very, very very ancient animals. Some of the first ones that we have the oldest fossil collections of. Through this chanting and putting the vibration of the chanting into the water, and the water forms the shape of some of these ancient organisms, some of the first organisms to be created on Earth. So it's very, very interesting. And I'm a skeptic of this stuff, but there's some things that just can't be denied. Anyway, going a bit off topic here, but the reason I was pre-framing that is that this wisdom has been orally passed down through Rig Veda and other forms of chanting. And there are people within the tradition called pandits. And these pandits, their role is essentially to memorize the entire scripture word by word and be able to recite any verse or any sentence of any verse of the entire thing, so it can be passed down orally, so that the tradition can't be destroyed, which it can't be anyway, because it exists in isness. But it really is remarkable. The more I've studied this, the more it's continued to blow my mind. Anyway, so orally it was passed down for thousands and thousands of years. The wisdom arrived at Gurudev's awareness, who was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's mentor. Maharishi studied at university initially, his early 20s and early 30s, and then became a devoted student of Gurudev in India. And I don't know the exact age, but just take it as a somewhat broad guesstimate. I can't remember exactly. But he just studied and learned and devoted himself to being a student of Gurudev's until he was 40-something years old when Gurudev passed away. And when Gurudev's casket was lowered into the Ganga, the river in the Ganges, which is one of the famous rivers in India that's known as like a sacred river of purification. And Maharishi grabbed onto the chains that were connected to the let's just call it a coffin that was being lowered in. And because it was a stone coffin, it was very heavy. And he grabbed the chains that were around the coffin and went all the way to the bottom of the Ganges and burst his eardrums on the way down because he was so sad that his guru had passed. And he came back up and he sat next to the river and meditated for 2 years. He refused to leave the site. And then he essentially had this cognition after 2 years of I refuse to leave the site of my guru, which was Gurudev, until he had a clear cognition, a clear intuitive impulse to go to a very specific town in South India, and the Ganges are North India. So he went down to this specific town, and there were people there that were kind of waiting for him. And they said, your job is to spread the wisdom from this tradition to the Western world. In a nutshell, I'm just paraphrasing, and I'm not the most expert person in the world. There are people that study this for their entire life who would know way more specific detail than me, but this is just the gist. And so then Maharishi Mahesh Yogi brought all these techniques and body of wisdom to the West, but just called the whole thing TM, Transcendental Meditation. Maharishi then went on to teach over 6 million people to meditate and certify close to 40,000 meditation teachers around the world. And he taught the Beatles to meditate. He taught some of the other celebrities. A lot of the Beatles songs were created in devotion to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. So this song, if you know, Jai Guru Deva Om, nothing's gonna change our world. If you know that song, nothing's gonna change our world. That song, like Jai Guru Dev, is Sanskrit and essentially means thank you. It's a way of saying thank you and giving gratitude. So anyone that's in the Vedic tradition will say Jai Guru Dev. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jai Guru Dev, Jai Guru Dev. And that's one of their most popular songs. That was written, that's Sanskrit, because they would devout students to Maharishi. Nothing's going to change our world, meaning we are connected to below the ocean. We're connected to the transcendental world, not the changing world on the surface where the waves are crashing, but we're actually deeply regimented in the field of transcendence. That's what that song means. And they've got a bunch of songs that were literally written in devotion to Maharishi, the Beatles. So Maharishi taught the Beatles, but he taught a ton of celebrities. Oprah. If anyone's read Principles by Ray Dalio is a super successful business dude. You've got Russell Brand that learned through him. I believe Joe Dispenza also has had some affiliation with them too. Anyway, that's not fact checked. 6 million people. Maharishi was completely devoted to spreading the wisdom of the Vedic tradition and getting as many people in the Western world to meditate as possible. He wasn't very material. He was very immaterial in nature. He just meditated all the time and taught all the time and was very much devoted to all of that. And then, but he happened to die with a net worth of $6 billion. He wasn't like Osho with 100 Rolls Royces or Bikram Yoga, the founder of Bikram Yoga, Bikram, who was also like connected to all this materialistic pursuits. He just all the money that was made from TM, all the resources, a lot of property was bought in India with that money, and those assets accumulated in a big way as some of the biggest cities in India grew. So his net worth was massive, and he taught 6 million people to meditate. Anyway, very, very beautiful, devoted student of Gurudev. And then his number one student, who is Tom Knowles. Tom Knowles was learning from Maharishi for decades until Maharishi passed. And when he passed, there was some politics that was created within the organization, apparently. I don't even know. It doesn't really matter. But this is just what I've heard as to why Vedic meditation was created as a separate legal organization from transcendental meditation. The transcendental meditation was formed by Maharishi. Maharishi's number one student, Tom Knowles, created Vedic meditation because he wasn't liking the politics, I guess, of TM after Maharishi's death, which was in 2008. And so there is Vedic meditation and TM. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world that practice both of these. And that's enough history. That's probably overkill, but it's cool. Let's move forward. The way that the technique works, or the way that Vedic meditation and transcendental meditation work, they're exactly the same the organizations work in the exact same way. You learn to meditate. You're given a mantra, which is a unique mantra based on the person. People will have different mantras. There's a series of mantras, and you get one based on you and where you are in your life. And there are a few different components that determine which mantra you're given. You keep that private to yourself, and you practice meditation. You learn meditation as a twice a day, 22-minute practice. Okay. Within Vedic and TM, there is then a 12-month training program called the Vedas. That program exists in TM and in Vedic, the Vedic meditation, TM, VM. So then there's also a Siddha training, which is another advanced 12-month training that exists in both of those. And then the only way up from there is that you can become a teacher yourself, which is usually quite an intense initiation process that involves up to 1,800 required what's called a round, which is essentially like a deep meditation that goes for 90 minutes. And it requires up to 1,800 rounds to become qualified. So it's very intense and thorough to become a transcendental meditation teacher or a Vedic meditation teacher. Same thing. And just so you know where I sit within that, I learned to meditate 6.5 years ago, got given a mantra. You can get an advanced mantra every year if you want. So I've got an advanced mantra. And then you can do the Vedas course. I did the Vedas course through Laura Poole, who was my meditation teacher, through Vedic meditation. And I did that 12-month thing. I've kind of messily reset that twice, and it involves 6 retreats. So it goes over a year, and then there are 6 retreats throughout the year. Same thing with the Siddha training, 6 retreats throughout the year. So I've done the Vedas, which was called the Rishi training from Laura Poole, 12-month program. I've reset that twice. And then I've also done the Siddha training. And I'll probably at some point do the Vedic meditation teacher training. But I'm a qualified teacher through Johnny Pollard, who is a Vedic meditator himself. Anywho, same technique, different set of mantras. The way that this practice works is every student is given a mantra, a transcendence mantra. Now, mantra, man means mind, tra means vehicle. So mantra means mind vehicle. And a transcendence mantra is a mind vehicle to deliver you with that metaphor of the different types of meditation in the ocean, mindfulness being above the waves, and then everything else being a deepening until you hit the bottom of the ocean. And below the ocean are transcendence techniques, meditations, and being meditations. A mantra, a mind vehicle of the transcendent sort, will deliver you from the surface cognition of being in thought, and it'll take you all the way down until you transcend the manifest world. No thoughts, no separation. You go into oneness. And if you go into oneness, that means you don't have any cognitive ability there anymore. No one does. Not even God exists and has cognition within oneness. Because if God exists, God is then separate from everyone that's not God, which implies there are two things, God and everything else, which means it's not oneness, because there's two. So transcendence meditation sends you into a place where you don't have any cognitive awareness. No one can, not even God. And it uses a mantra to deliver yourself into this place. So you're given a mantra, and the mantra is a tool that it's this thought very effortlessly internally in the mind's eye as creating some central point of awareness or thinking, but so subtle, because the mind will race if it doesn't have something to place its awareness on. And if you can very subtly place your awareness on a mantra, and the mantra is designed to transcend your cognitive thought process and go from the manifest world into the unmanifest world, you can utilize that mantra to get into that depth. And it's a very subtle form of focus. So if you're just concentrating on your breath isn't a transcendence mind vehicle. Your breath is just your breath. So you're still in the mental realm. Whereas if you can bring your mental awareness to a mantra that is designed to help you transcend, then you're going to end up transcending. So that's how the technique works. You're given a mantra. You do 20 minutes of being with the mantra and being very effortlessly allowing it. And then you transcend at some point. You either transcend or you process a bunch of stress and it's really ungratifying. Either way, you're becoming more and more affiliated with the source of creation, the superconscious, or being supernatural, or isness, or the divine. So you become more connected to that, which means you become more connected to your authentic self. You become your most authentic self, your most powerful self. That's not caught up in attachment, not caught up in worry and stress and overwhelm thinking. It's just powerful, that knows, has a sense of knowing, centeredness, innate connection, presence, and from that power. So that's the way that the technique works when you practice that. It's designed to take you out of any of the types of meditation, out of this conscious world and into oneness, transcended into pure being, where you're not even aware. You are awareness. You can't have thoughts in that place. You're out. And the only way that you know you've been there is when you've come out. You're like, whoa, how did 20 minutes go by like this? That is Vedic meditation or transcendental meditation. That is the form that I recommend that you practice. It is recommended to practice in the morning, in late afternoon, or early evening. And this is a really, really key difference here. I'm going to just give a bunch of different understanding of the technique and why to practice and the benefits and how it works now between here and the end of the interview. Essentially, when you learn to meditate through either TM or VM, you are choosing to become a meditator. Now, before I became a meditator and was in a way initiated or just given a mantra through Vedic meditation, before that point in 2017 when I learned, I'd meditated before. I know if you're listening to this and you don't meditate consistently, that you've meditated before. You've done guided meditations. Maybe you've used a few different apps and experimented with Insight Timer or what's it called? Mind. Yeah, I know you would have Headspace. The Headspace app's quite popular, or the One Giant Mind app that Johnny created. You've probably experimented with it or done different ones, like loving kindness meditations from Tara Brach. Maybe you've been online and listened to some meditations from different spiritual New Age thought leaders. These are all meditation types. They're probably mainly going to be connection techniques, or none of them are going to be transcendence techniques, because none of them will be allowing you to transcend into oneness, but that doesn't mean they're not powerful and supportive. So everyone's tried them, and I'd tried them before becoming a Vedic meditation student. But there's a very big difference between I practice do you meditate? Yeah, I meditate every week, every 2 days, once a day, every few days, every few weeks, once a month. And that was me. I probably did a meditation every week or two. Sometimes, some weeks I'd do it a few times, but I was never consistently practicing, because I was someone that practiced meditation, but I wasn't a meditator. So when you become a meditator, when you actually choose to learn to meditate, and I haven't even gone over the benefits yet. We all know it's healthy for us. There is 10,000 research papers on the power of meditation. It's very difficult to be consistent if it's something you do here and there. It's kind of like saying, yeah, sometimes I eat healthy, sometimes I meditate. But for me, I don't eat processed food. Like, I own the identity of I'm a healthy person. I literally don't eat processed food maybe once every 3 to 6 months. The rest of the time, I'm eating meat, vegetables, fruit, nuts, seeds, grains. I'm not eating processed stuff. And as a result, it's very, that's just what I do. Another identity that I have is that I don't drink alcohol. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink alcohol. Yeah. I haven't been an alcohol consumer for 14 or 15 years. I brief flirt with it when I was 16 years old and on my 17th birthday, and then I never touched it again. I actually tried it a year ago. This is going off topic, but I tried it a year ago, hoping that I might actually like the taste of wine, because I know it's not the worst thing for you to have here and there, and it's got some benefits, but it just tastes disgusting. And the people I was with were just like, oh, you'll get used to it. I'm like, I'm not just going to do something that I need to get used to. So yeah, haven't had another sip since then. That's one sip in 15 years. Bottom line is, I don't drink alcohol. So if someone says, hey, you want to have a drink? I don't go, oh, let me feel into whether it's a line. I just don't drink alcohol. So it's a clear no. I don't even have to think about it. No consideration. And the same thing with meditation. If you're a meditator, you meditate twice a day, non-negotiably. You never miss a day. Yeah. Over the last 6.5 years, I had one small period of time where I intentionally let go of every practice, including meditation, to see what actually made a difference, because I had so many habits. And I was like, I'm not just going to do this for the sake of doing them. I'm going to go blank canvas, nothing other than eat healthy and move. No mindset hacks or anything. What actually works? And the biggest thing that worked, and that made an enormous amount of a difference on how I felt, was meditation. Other than that, I've not missed a single meditation. Twice a day, every day, for my entire 6.5 years, other than that intentional little period of time. So there's never a time where I miss a meditation. Never. It's always minimum twice a day. I've already done my 2 a day. I'll probably do another one later. If I have a full busy day, I'll always bend my life around it, because once you experience the benefits of it, you can't go back. It's possible if you're in the transitional phase, because what happens when you meditate, we're kind of getting into the benefits here, whereas because you're connecting to the nature of what you are, the source of creation, the subatomic world, the quantum world, superconscious, isness, oneness, which we were all created from that place. We all manifested from that source of creation. When we bathe in that, we become more of our true nature. We become more like that source of creation, which is pure love and awareness. We become more like pure love. And so what happens, the more that you meditate, the more that your state of consciousness evolves, and the more that your state of consciousness evolves, the more you naturally choose loving options in life. Wholesome and holy. The more that you become whole, the more you meditate, the more whole you feel in who you are, the more whole, complete, one you feel, the more naturally wholesome you become. It's not wholesome to binge eat sugar. It's not wholesome to be scrolling on social media. It's not wholesome to be addicted to TV, right? Doesn't mean that it can't be wholesome to have a little treat here and there, but addiction's not wholesome. And so the more that you meditate, the more you become your natural true self. And then habits just let themselves go. Like, I am so healthy now, thanks to meditation. 6.5 years, just slowly, one by one, my life reoriented itself to become more aligned with nature. I make decisions now, and my whole lifestyle is a reflection of a healthy, vital, loving, wholesome, and holy. Holy, sacred, same thing. Life. And it's beautiful. It's fulfilling. And I get to experience connection and presence, and the depth of how I relate to life is so meaningful and beautiful. Thanks to meditation. So, all you need to do is own the identity of a meditator. I am a meditator. That means I meditate twice a day, every day. If you have a job, you go to work every day. You don't go, let me feel into if I want to go to work today. You show up at it, because that's what you do when you have a job. When you're a meditator, you meditate twice a day. You don't just go, do I want to meditate today? You're committed to the natural maturation, accelerating the natural maturation of your state of consciousness, which has a big, wide variety of benefits attached to it. So that's that first thing I'll say. Do a meditation course with a transcendental meditation teacher or a Vedic meditation teacher. There is also the One Giant Mind meditation technique, which you can kind of half learn with the app for free. And then you can go learn from a TM instructor. But because TM and VM, and I also teach core meditation, which was something that was just given to me as a transmission that I need to do with my own set of mantras that I teach that are also transcendence mantras, and they also help in the same way. But I don't have an established worldwide community for this. And a huge benefit of learning transcendental meditation or Vedic meditation is that once you've learned, and it usually costs around $1,000 to learn, it's usually over a 4-day course, not 4 full days, 4 2 to 3 hour sessions, 4 90-minute to 3-hour sessions over 4 consecutive days. You get given your mantra and you learn how to do the technique. You get to practice the technique and explain what your experience was like and be given feedback, so you refine the way that you're practicing. And after that 4 days, you've got your technique for life. But the other cool thing is that when you learn TM or VM, you then can go to any group meditation class for free forever. So if you learn TM, you can go to a Vedic meditation, any teachers around, because there are thousands and thousands, there's tens of thousands of teachers around the world. So you can be like, cool, I'm in Sydney. And then you can just Google Vedic meditation teachers and then just go along to their weekly group meditations, which are free for life. So it's very easy to find community of people that value a whole, wholesome, and holy way of being. And that community is so important and so valuable. And it is one of the reasons that I teach really, really powerful spiritual wisdom, emotional wisdom, and integrative wisdom of how to live a fulfilled life. I've created this unique set of practices and modalities that are so powerful, so powerful. It ties things together in my experience, in my opinion, better than Dr. John Demartini or Joe Dispenza or Muji. It's a very big thing to say, but I honestly believe that from my experience in that, better than internal family systems. And I've got one of the most powerful bodies of wisdom that exists out there from an integrative perspective that's well-rounded and whole in nature. And the people that I've taught it to have just had their mind blown and a big awakening experience. But the speed of the improvement of the quality of their life can only be based on, no, let me rephrase this accurately. That whole process and everything that I teach and believe, and I teach very complexly, the complexities of the source of life and creation and how we're here and why we're here and why do we go through challenge and how do we manifest things? It's just such an intricate body of wisdom that I teach. But someone's capacity to make the most of that and live their most fulfilling life is going to be significantly richer, and the pace of evolution is going to be significantly faster if they practice TM or VM. And to practice TM and VM being I am a meditator. I meditate twice a day. To own that identity is difficult initially. And so when you can learn through a TM or a VM teacher, transcendental meditation or Vedic meditation teacher, you know you're learning from someone that's really embodied with meditation. Doesn't mean they're embodied with their finances or health or other things, but over time they will become more and more embodied with those things as the meditation naturally expands them to the most authentic and courageous version of themselves. However, what you will get to experience is their community forever, for free. It's really powerful. And any peer of those Vedic meditations, any other teachers around the world, you can go and be a part of their communities for free. It's a beautiful thing to be initiated into. And it's been game-changing, life-changing for me. So I highly recommend that. And it's the reason I'm bringing this back up is because my body of work, I do it to be more fulfilled. And my fulfillment, one of the impacts on that is knowing that I'm being of greatest service. And just teaching my body of wisdom and having students not practicing meditation is just not doing it justice. And so I'm leaning a lot more into meditation teaching, and I'm going to be teaching again. And I'm probably going to become a Vedic meditation teacher. But if you're listening to this podcast, I'm not a Vedic meditation teacher yet, as of end of February 2024. But if I do become one, then come learn from me. If I don't, or you just want to learn now, go learn from someone else. And if you want to just get on it, but you don't want to find the community and find the teacher and all that stuff, just get the One Giant Mind meditation app. It's number one, and then Giant Mind. And just there's some instructions on how to practice. And if you do that twice a day, you're going to be getting pretty much the full benefit, pretty close to it at least, for free straight away. So go get that app and just do that right now. One Giant Mind meditation app by Johnny Pollard, and start practicing that. You can do that straight away. But then eventually, look, it's strong words from me. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to stay in my realm, if you want to go listen to any podcast that I do, if you're on this podcast and you're not willing to go and practice meditation, there's no point in you listening to this stuff. It's an extreme thing to say, but if you put yourself in the category of meditation is just not my thing, it's because you're resistant to the change that it's going to create. And it is going to change your life in the most magical, miraculous ways, which is going to put you out of control. And so it's natural to have resistance to it. But I believe so strongly in it, even though I'm going to get no profit from it, that you need to meditate. VM, TM, One Giant Mind. I believe so strongly in it, even though there's no benefit for me other than your evolution. that I'm literally going to say, there is no point just consuming the wisdom that I have to offer on this podcast and get some interesting updates if you're not willing to practice, put things to practice, walk the talk, get into it. So on that note, let's talk about the benefits of what meditation actually does. When you meditate, you're doing the ultimate surrender. It's so different to everything else we have in life, even all the other techniques of meditation on that spectrum of the different types I explained. You've got all those different types. However, if you are even witnessing and you've got the intention to observe, there's still activity. It's not the ultimate surrender. Using a mantra is the ultimate surrender. And everything in life is so disciplinary. Our whole society is based off performance, metrics from early school, primary school, elementary school. We're graded on things. How are you doing with your learning? How are you doing with your tests? How are you doing with your sport? How are you doing with your music? You're given a score. Everything is so based around achievement and performance. And so that's a powerful thing to be able to engage in, to perform and show up and give your best and feel okay with whatever the outcome ends up being. But there's a really powerful quote that Jason Silver quoted. He didn't create it, but I heard him say it on a podcast. And that is that flow happens at the junction point between discipline and surrender. Now, our society is very focused around discipline and performance. That's masculine. The ultimate feminine is to surrender. And so if you just have the masculine, and you know what? Meditation actually is more masculine than feminine. So masculine and feminine is such a subjective thing. But if you're just forcing, grinding, desperately trying to create what you want in the world, and you haven't learned surrender, you don't have the support of the entire universe on your side. When you get to practice a transcendence technique, you're learning to surrender. That's how the technique is done. Now, what happens when you surrender in that most pure form is, if you think about being someone that's really, really busy, is usually really, really unproductive or ineffective, usually. If someone's really busy, the stress in their field causes their prefrontal cortex, which is the creative problem solving, the part of our mind that has imagination, the part of our mind that switches on for strategic thinking. The prefrontal cortex switches off anytime you've got stress in your system, because the sympathetic nervous system puts you into fight or flight, and you have a massive fear response to try to keep you alive. You go into fight, flight, freeze, or appease. Fight could be just like agitated and frustrated and annoyed that you can't get progress with something and just flustered. Flight can be just chopping and changing what you focus on, this task and that task, and you don't finish anything. Freeze, procrastination is procrastination. And appease is not as relevant here. So fight, flight, or freeze, that response goes off. Prefrontal cortex, your mind shuts down essentially and goes into a fight, flight, freeze response. And you either stop your focus, get all agitated, focus on a million different things at once, or just go into freeze and just keep procrastinating, and you just divert yourself to short-term gratification. That's what happens when the prefrontal cortex shuts off and the amygdala becomes the primary driver of the mind. So what happens when we are really, really busy is we're super ineffective. When you are busy, you miss things. You miss opportunities. You can't see obvious blind spots that are stopping you from getting what you want. But when you have space, the opposite of busyness, when you have space, all of a sudden you see things. All of a sudden, with that extra awareness, the blind spots become obvious. The opportunities become obvious. And you have the ability to effectively navigate your life. I work so much less than what I used to when I was powering a multi-million-dollar business. But my financial situation is significantly better than what it used to be. My health is significantly better than what it used to be. My relationships are significantly better than what they used to be. My friendships are significantly better than what they used to be. Everything is significantly more fulfilling, effective, because I'm able just to be a free thinker. I've kind of zoomed out the matrix. If you haven't listened to the last episode that I did, which was Take the Red Pill, that whole blue pill consciousness of being in fear consciousness or survival brain can be superseded and transcended using transcendental meditation, which is when you take the most potent space that you could possibly give your mind, the most nourishing space you could possibly give your mind. And some people literally say doing 20 minutes of meditation is the equivalent of 3 or 4 hours worth of sleep. It's not a substitute for sleep, but in the difference in capacity to focus, concentrate, critically think, intuit, and be creative and imaginative, your capacity to navigate life becomes worlds apart different and improved when you enter that space of hyper-awareness. When you meditate, you enter that space of hyper-awareness. So when we meditate, we see things. When we're busy and our whole world, just the steady state consciousness of 99% of the population is overstimulated. If you wake up and check your phone within the first hour of getting out of bed, you're in that category of the 99%. Even if it's after 50 minutes. To have a phone that grabs our attention with addictive tendencies, coffee, any short-term gratifications, social media, cigarettes, alcohol, scrolling, TV shows, Netflix, even just gossiping, all these short-term gratification strategies are symptoms of dysregulation and overstress. When we meditate, we transcend and go beyond that because we, number one, increase our capacity for awareness, which means we can see blind spots and we're way more effective. The second thing is it is ridiculously regenerative. Your mind quiets down, which means you can see things and think clearly. Your body goes into a deep state of rest, so it rejuvenates. If you want to get jacked and you're going to the gym and you meditate after, your body's going to put itself back together and grow quicker. They're the first two big benefits that I'll say. Increase in awareness, which comes with potency, creativity, intelligence, etc., and increased energy. And the third one is increased quality of life, because you instantly step into a state of presence. And this is a misnomer when it comes to meditation, because a lot of people go into it thinking it should be relaxing. It depends on what sort of meditation you're doing. If you're doing a focusing technique, every second that you're not focused, you're going to feel stressed. And when you're focused for the few microseconds, you'll feel accomplished, neither of which is relaxing. If you go into a transcendence technique or a being technique and you're using this mantra that I'm referring to in this episode, you're either going to be in one of two categories as a macro theme of the and anywhere in between in any combination of these two things. It's either going to be gratifying, which means that you're going into that transcendent state and you're bathing in your true nature, so you become more like it. Or secondly, the technique is going to chip away at everything that is not that. It's going to process stress. And the way that it feels to process stress, busyness, toxicity, the way that it feels to process that is very agitating. It means you got a million thoughts going on. You're distracted. And a lot of people think, I'm not meditating right. I don't like this. When their body is just processing stress. So that'll be the two experiences that you'll have in a million different flavors of those two things or combinations of those two things. In fact, your meditation, you'll never have two of the same meditations. However, they're the two macro experiences you can have when you meditate. That's in the experience. But after a meditation, that's what you want to value the meditation on, based on how you feel after the meditation. During the meditation, it doesn't really matter whether there's lots of stress. It's agitating, very ungratifying. Cool. You obviously have an overactive system and a lifestyle that's unsustainable. This is helping chip away at that while also affiliating you more with your true self so you can make the adjustments required to not need to reactively process all that stress, but actually have a lifestyle that's in alignment where you can be very effective, very productive, very on purpose, very intelligent with the way you approach things. Not need to be overstressed, overworked, grasping for short-term gratification, food, porn, social media, all the things. You can actually just feel centered, present, and fulfilled every day. That's where you'll get as a result of meditation long-term. And in my opinion, that is the biggest benefit, even though people care about that the least. Because you're in the attachment loop of the blue pill consciousness of driving, grasping, striving, forcing. I'm not good enough. I'm empty. They are forgetting. They're forgetting. They're forgetting their true nature. And they are forgetting. They're for trying to get things. Yeah, that's what they're prioritizing. Getting things. And they're missing out in the present. They're missing out on the fullness, the wholeness, the wholesomeness, and the holiness that exists right here and now. And that's the biggest gift of practicing a transcendent meditation technique, transcendental meditation or Vedic meditation. So, that's it. That's enough information now. Go get the One Giant Mind app. If you're in Melbourne, you want me to teach you, I'll teach you with core meditation, affordably and effectively. And if I do learn more advanced teaching form like Vedic meditation or TM, I will teach you again for free the slightly more advanced technique. And if you're not in Melbourne, go find someone. Go find a Vedic meditation teacher. Go find a transcendental meditation teacher. Join the community and become a meditator. If you're listening to this and you're just trying to meditate, I respect the intention, but the actual fruits probably won't be there. Because it is incredibly difficult to fight off with your mind every single day as to whether or not you should spend the time to transcend it. The mind doesn't want you to do that. It's an uphill battle. Kind of like me when I was a workaholic entrepreneur and I joined my friend's boot camp and he's like, cool, the deal is $50 a week. You can come to as many as you want. Just bring cash and pay it to me. And I was like, dude, if I pay week by week with you, you ain't going to see me next week because it's a choice. I got to use my willpower every single week to come back. I can't do that. I've got willpower in this moment. I'm going to use that willpower to sign up for 6 months. So here's whatever it was, 6 months worth of the weekly amount. Take it. So I'm locked in. I don't even have to think about it. I just do boot camp. That's what I do now. No thought process, no willpower, no motivation needed. I just do it. Same thing with being a meditator. You just do it. And so if you have the intuitive pull, if you know that it's what you want to do, if you feel the benefit, then go sign up to Vedic meditation. Go sign up to transcendental meditation and become a meditator. Not trying to meditate, become a meditator. All right. It has changed my life more than anything else. I want the best for you. And I know that you will come back and you'll thank me. I sent my meditation teacher little messages just here and there, just saying, thanks so much for changing my life. It's been 6.5 years, but it's a decision that changed my life more than anything else. And it will do to your life too, if you give yourself the opportunity. That's it, beautiful humans. If you're here and you're in this and you're resonating with my stuff, the best thing you can do with me is my Art of Fulfillment workshop. If you're interested in that and you want more information, email me, ryan@ryanmagic.com. I love you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in future episodes.